I remember. My earliest memory must be of when I had my tonsils removed in the sanatorium in Otrobanda. I must have been around 2 or 3 years old at the time. I remember the smell of the disinfectant creolin. My grandfather brought me pink pear drops for my so very sore throat. I remember the Johann van Walbeek School so well. Some of my earliest memories are from my first days in school. Now so long ago. I can hear children crying on their first day in kindergarten. I close my eyes and see the old-fashioned wooden desk and the inkwell with a sliding lid, the dip pen and the blotting paper. The sound of children playing in the schoolyard is still so clear in my mind. I step outside and walk towards Roikatochi. An impenetrable forest grows in the dam behind the gully and the mesh wire. Taxi drivers find a good place to nap, in between rides in the shade beneath the trees that cover the lane. I turn to the left at Soikertoincha and walk towards Landhaus Bloompot where Momo and Pepe once lived. They were the people who I saw as my grandparents even though they were not. They were my mother's godparents. They did not have any children of their own. My mother's father died in 1928, leaving his wife a widow with 8 children to take care of by herself. My mother was 9 years old at the time. My grandfather had a shop, a bar on Calle Grande in Otro Banda, but he drank too much. His brother was the original owner of what is now the Netto Bar. My great-grandfather had the Stupi Halta bar. He lived on the second floor of the bar with his wife and their 14 children. My grandmother struggled to provide for her children after her husband passed away. I have a photo of her with her 8 children in the yard of her house. She died of pneumonia at the age of 50, not long after this photo was taken. My mother grew up in Otro Banda and in Momo's Landhaus Bloompot. Both Momo and my mother's last name was Peters. The ancestors of all the Peters on the island lie buried at nearby Landhaus Bever. That is, those whose last name is spelled with a Z at the end. The tombstone of the first Peters on Curaçao reads, "Here lies buried Jan Peters from Oxford, cornet of the cavalry, who passed away on February 29, 1684, with his housewife Johanna Matthias, who passed away on April 27, 1698. There is another grave next to it. It is of their son, who, like his father, had also been cornet of the cavalry. He died in 1697. His name was Thomas Peters, same as my grandfather. Jan had enlisted with the Dutch West India Company when he was 16. Jan, or rather, John, was born in Oxford, England. His father was called Peter. The cavalry patrolled the coast and the bays around the island. They were stationed in the Reuterkwartier or cavalry quarters in Groot and Klein Kwartier and the area around Poos Kabai. They were always on the lookout for pirates and enemy ships. The Dutch took possession of Curaçao in 1640. Jan was among the first European settlers on the island. The historian Hamelberg tells an anecdote about the feud between Jan's wife Johanna Matthias and her neighbor, Mrs. de Lange, wife of Cornet Abraham de Lange. It was rumored that she was having an affair with Van Liebergen, the director of the Dutch West India Company in the colony. I guess my ancestor Johanna Matthias had been spreading a lot of gossip about this scandalous affair. In any case, these two women hated each other's guts. Jan Peters had lived in the Reuterkwartier since 1654. In 1681, his house was destroyed by a hurricane. When he started rebuilding his house, he received an order from the director to stop all construction activities. The excuse given was that the house was inconveniently situated and that it prevented them from properly overseeing the cavalry. This, obviously, didn't make any sense. The previous situation had existed just fine for more than 27 years. Van Liebergen offered Jan Peters another terrain on which to build his new house. Johanna Matthias, who smelled a rat, suspected Mrs. de Lange and her lover had concocted a plan to keep prying eyes away. When Van Liebergen and a few officers visited the quarters, she gave him quite a scolding. In the end, Jan Peters van Oxford consented to building his new house on the allotted terrain. Thus, around 1682, a house was built that would come to be known as Landhuis Bever after its later occupant Daniel Bever. Jan passed away in 1684, not long after he had completed building his new house. The terrain on which the house was built cannot have been very large. The original building had been quite modest. The two graves were placed close to it. The tombstones seem somewhat elaborate and pompous. They must have cost the family a lot of money. When the house was sold in 1846, there was a stipulation that the tombstones are to remain intact. At present, the graves are completely overgrown by shrubs and trees. Fortunately, I have photos of the tombstones from 2007 when they were in a better condition.